now recognizes the gentleman from Utah, Representative Curtis, finally, for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Administrator. The last time you and I talked and we met in this setting, we discussed how the EPA's lack of adherence to statutory deadlines was directly impacting the pace of American innovation. And by the way, much of that innovation is targeted at a cleaner environment, and by not approving these, we're using older methods that are not as effective. At the time, you told me that everything would be better if you could get more staffing and funding. I pushed back. This is not always an issue of money. It's an issue of organization, and it's an issue of will. But I will say in the last 8 years, EPA has administratively raised user fees more than 14-fold, and you just recently doubled it. Since today's a budget hearing, I want to spend a little time on your budget and starting with our conversation from last year. EPA's new chemicals program applications have dropped from 600 annually to just over 200. In the last 2 calendar years, without regard for a deadline that is a legal deadline, EPA made 95 and 101 determinations, respectively. Bluntly put, I think we can still agree that's an F rating. You're required by law to return fees if you miss deadlines. However, EPA has never returned the fee to an applicant when EPA misses its deadline, because the applicant always, coincidentally, suspends or withdraws their application. Can you explain why applications always withdraw or suspend their application just in time to allow EPA to keep their money for nothing in return?
I was unaware that applications were being withdrawn by force from EPA, so we'd have to kind of really zero in on which applications, what the conditions were or circumstances.
So I'm pleased that you're willing to look at that, because you can tell just on the surface if that's correct, that's not good. I've been told that EPA has effectively threatened by phone to ask them to suspend or withdraw their applications. I'm going to take your word for it that you don't have any knowledge of this, but I would like you to look into it and come back and share with us your findings, because as you can see, that would be hugely problematic.
I commit that to you. Excellent.
Thank you. For those watching, Section 26 of the TSCA permits EPA to charge user fees of 25% of this program's budget's cost. In the last years, I mentioned that you've increased those fees 14-fold and recently doubled it. Now turning to your budget, the EPA's estimate of TSCA direct costs are substantially more than the 25% of the appropriated budget. So, won't surprise you, but I'm perplexed about how you can spend that money if it's not coming in. In other words, in EPA's view, that it can charge fees of 25% predicted regardless of the cost?
I'd have to look into that. I mean, I want to really interrogate this assertion, because I'm not quite sure we agree on the premise of where this is coming from. And I think we need to take a look at, number one, the performance over the past 3 years with the increased budget that we did receive, which, you know, the number of new chemicals we're reviewing each month has doubled. We've cleared backlogs. So we need to reconcile what you're saying in terms of our performance over the past 3 years versus these fees and charges. And I'd love to have a deeper conversation about that.
I invite that conversation because this is important. It's important for your agency. It's important for America. There's been a lot of discussion today about a cleaner future. Much of these ideas could lead us to that, and the fact that they're being backlogged and then having the problem of being withdrawn without the fees being returned. And I appreciate your commitment to do that, whether it's with me personally or back here in this committee room. I welcome that and look forward to those conversations.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I yield.
The gentleman yields.